It's time to talk LSU baseball with Mike Scarborough and Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball. This is Batter Up.
All right, this week's edition of Batter Up, April 3rd, and LSU on their way to Norman, Oklahoma. First time LSU has ever played in Norman, Oklahoma. And just kind of look at the way this SEC schedule is setting up. LSU on the road 2 weekends in a row, Auburn next weekend. But some very interesting games around the SEC this weekend. Outside of LSU in Oklahoma, Georgia at Texas is one that everybody's going to be eyeing from afar, and a really big and pivotal one. And we bring in the number one guy in the country for collegiate baseball, any college baseball talk, and that's Kendall Rogers with D1Baseball.com. What's up, Kendall?
Not much, man. It's hard to believe that this is the first time that LSU and OU have played in Norman.
I know.
You kind of feel like they would have at some point, like the 90s when OU was rolling and LSU was rolling.
Well, there's some things like that in football. You know, LSU and Michigan have never played in football.
That's crazy. Still?
Yeah.
Wow, Woody's got to make that happen. We got to have a home and home with LSU and Michigan in football.
Believe me, there was a time where, and I'm sure LSU fans would say that LSU's assistant or associate athletic director, Verge Osbury, who does football scheduling, with the openers that LSU's had every year, that infuriates everybody, particularly with a big losing streak. I'll leave it at that. And now,
has LSU ever played Penn State? Has LSU ever played Penn State in the regular season in football?
I'd have to look it up, but that could be another one.
I was just thinking, like,
I'm unaware of LSU ever playing in Happy Valley.
Yeah, my LSU football knowledge, after about 2000 is pretty good, but before that, like, I don't ever remember them playing Penn State in the regular season. So that's another one.
They played in the Capital One Bowl, stuff like that, but that's it.
Ohio State regular season? No.
Yes, they've been home and homes with Ohio State.
Really? Okay, I don't remember that. All right.
Yep. 1987. Ended in a tie, and there was another one.
That reminds me, I need to get over there for a football game this year. It's been a few years since I've been at Tiger Stadium, so I got to get over there.
Yep. Your thoughts on this LSU baseball team going to this weekend, and what can we expect out of Oklahoma?
Yeah, I think for LSU, you look back at last weekend against Mississippi State, and obviously it was a great weekend. They did a clean sweep at Mississippi State. Mississippi State's in a really tough spot now at 1-8. And I think when you look at LSU, like, if you're Jay, like, you kind of saw what you wanted to see. I do think command in some of those games late was a little rough, to say the least. But I mean, it's tough to evaluate because one of the games was being played at 12:30 in the morning, and the weather wasn't great all weekend. So I don't know how much I take from that, but overall, offense was clicking on all cylinders. The pitching did more than enough, and they got a sweep. So LSU's in a good spot. As for
Kendall,
Oklahoma,
that Mississippi State team, I know what their record is.
They're not bad.
They are not a bad team.
No, they're you look at A&M and you look at Florida as 1-8 teams that you go, man, I don't know if I like this team. I think you look at Mississippi State as a 1-8 team and you go, I kind of like these guys. Like, I like Pico Khan at the front of the rotation. I think they've got nice bullpen arms. I actually think their offense is kind of scrappy, and yet they're 1-8. So I think they're one of those classic teams that if they were in the Big 12 or something like that, they might be a top 3 or 4 team. Instead, they're unfortunately in the SEC.
Well, we've seen what's happening, and look, we've seen what has happened in men's and women's basketball with all the bids that went to SEC schools, and it proved that it was the correct call. I know we're way out, and I know y'all did what'd y'all do? Y'all did a bracket earlier in the week. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even go count it up. How many SEC teams did y'all have? Because I mean, are we on the verge of seeing a record number, or is it impossible to have? Well, you're going to have a record number.
Well, potentially. The problem we run into right now is with Florida, A&M State, South Carolina, and Missouri, all these teams struggling. I mean, right now it's a max of 11 bids. I mean, there's not a 12th team that emerged there unless one of those three teams. I would say A&M State or Florida, the only three teams out of that group that I could go, oh, okay, I could see them go on a run to some degree. If that doesn't happen, though, I mean, that 11 is your max. And so to get to 12, one of those teams is going to have to go on a run. What's really interesting is the SEC had 7 hosts. The ACC had 3, which I think people will be surprised because the ACC had as many bids in our projections. But the SEC right now, just, I mean, very, very mid to top heavy so far this season.
When I'm looking at the SEC standings right now, and you've got a lot, you got 3 teams there at 1-8. Missouri with doesn't have a win yet, and looking at Auburn and Kentucky with 4-5 records. In the bottom half of the league, who's most likely to dig themselves out?
I would go with Florida. I mean, I think if you look at A&M, they just lost Josh Stewart for the season, their stud reliever. I mean, he hasn't pitched since the first weekend of the season, but he's officially out for the year. Caden Sorrell's back, but I mean, you've got several injuries. I just don't. You look at their schedule. I think we talked about last week, but they still have Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas, Georgia, Texas. That's just really difficult. So I think the team for me would be Florida. I do think if you watch Florida, a little bit like State, if you watch Florida, you watch them and you're like, man, how in the hell are these guys on 1-8? But then all of a sudden they'll have an inning where they just totally fall apart. So kind of like last year, I think Florida is really dangerous because I think they have the talent to go on a run. The question is, can they stay healthy? Cade Curlin's out for the year for the Gators. So Florida would be the team for me, I think. Mississippi State, I just think Florida has more star power.
Of course, we're brought each and every week by attorney Kenneth P. Haines, and his first question for you, Kendall, is, in your view, what is LSU's path to solving the third game of the series riddle with the pitching staff?
It's a great question. I mean, I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Is when you look at Zach Cowan, I mean, he's a guy that and let me explain this again. When Gavin Guidry comes back, I think it clears some things up for LSU a little bit, because here's my thinking. If you're Jay Johnson and Gavin Guidry's back, he's healthy, he's throwing well, he's obviously a hard-nosed guy at the back in the games. What that allows you to do, it allows you to kind of push Case and Evans and some of these other guys into different roles. And so I think once Guidry can come back and once he can actually go out there and give you solid innings out of the bullpen at the end of games, you're able to move, Cowan off that Friday kind of extended role, and you can now either put him as a starter or you just kind of shift him to Sunday. I think getting Gavin back really clears a lot of things up for LSU. It allows you to put some of these bullpen arms in different roles. And I don't see them changing anything in the weekend until that happens. If that doesn't happen, I think you continue to see Cowan in the role that he's in. I get that it's really tempting to make him a weekend starter, but I'll tell you what, I mean, if you make him a weekend starter and the bullpen's not cutting it, you're in trouble in those first 2 games, because guess what teams are going to do? They're going to make Cade Anderson throw 70 pitches in 4 innings, and they're going to make, Anthony Ianson throw 70 pitches in 4 innings. They're going to make the bullpen throw strikes. So I think Guidry coming back will clear a lot of things up. And I think you said y'all's availability this week. They're hoping to get him back next weekend. Of course, he was hoping to get him back for Missouri. So we'll see.
All right, well, let's hear from Kenny.
Kenny Haines is a proud 1989 graduate of LSU Law School with a passion for justice. Kenny stands out as the only lawyer in the state, board certified in both appellate practice and family law. Drawing from 34 years of trial experience, Kenny has navigated the most complex aspects of real people's lives. If you need help in Northwest Louisiana with a family issue, legal issue, or a highly skilled trial attorney, call Kenny, 318-222-2100.
All right. Of course, Kenny also on the back end of that question before the commercial, he says, is it just simply that Shores has to get better?
I mean, Shores getting better would be the optimal situation, right? And it's there. I think the ability to get a lot better is there. I mean, you look at his size, you look at the stuff. I mean, the stuff is not the problem; it's the command. And so, I mean, I've seen guys. I mean, it'd be a laundry list of guys that suddenly they kind of figure out their stuff or command or what's causing them to, against Texas, he's really going to that glove side with the slider quite a bit and getting off the plate. All of a sudden he tweaks something. He's not getting off the plate anymore. It happens all the time.
Well, you got some people out there, including my co-host that brought it up last night on Tiger Bait Live that, is Yetsky a guy that might start having some fingers pointed his way?
Yeah, I mean, let's see what happens as the season progresses. I mean, yeah, it's easy for us to sit back here and go, hey, it's his fault they're not throwing strikes. You know what I mean? Like, that's the easy way out. I mean, I would say this.
Or the argument that he's calling for too many fastballs.
I mean, yeah, that's a good question for Jay. Like, are they throwing too many fastballs? But I mean, here's my thing: as long as you're winning weekend series, I mean, yeah, you want to get better, but like that's the goal of SEC play is like taking care of business on the weekend. So you know what? If they continue to have command issues and they start not winning these series, then I think there's a discussion to be had about.
Well, this is what we do in Baton Rouge, Kendall. LSU's in sole possession of third place. Of course, you got three teams bottled up in second place. But this is going to be a long slog.
It's a long slog. I mean, dude, here's the thing. And I love the passion from LSU fans. But, I mean, how many times during the Maneri era did LSU lose some random-ass series early in the season and everybody's like, oh, my God, like we're done. Like, this is it. End of the season, they won 54 games. They're in Omaha. The end. Like, I just feel like LSU historically, especially with so many young arms, it's going to take time to tweak everything.
Jay kind of had a Maneri type of a year last year where it was a mad dash and a heart attack. Are you going to get in the tournament? And, and then you're a game away from hosting a super. Maneri had a few of those were really slow starts and then, extended winning streaks on the back end of the SEC schedule. And I think most people would just like you to win 2 out of 3 every weekend and sweep 1 or 2. And
if you win 2 out of 3 most weekends in the SEC, you're pretty good baseball team.
Yeah. I got something else for you. Guidry and his health. Yeah. I mean, we talked about that already. It's we keep thinking from one week to the next, but he did say the other night that he expects him next week, and that is really big news.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to the stuff with him, I love having that presence out there. I feel like he's the kind of guy that when he pitches, everybody kind of ups the ante a little bit because if you don't, he's going to be in your ass, so to speak. So I'd love having a guy like that in a big role.
I don't know what Norman is like for baseball. What is that stadium like? Is it?
It's definitely not going to be some sort of intimidating atmosphere. It won't be anywhere near what Texas was. I will give Oklahoma credit. It's not historically a baseball fan base, but and again, people are going to people on listening or watching this might laugh at this, but they had like 4,500 people at one of their games against Mississippi State. And if you go to L. Dale Mitchell Park this weekend, like 4,500 is like a very packed house at that ballpark. They're about to actually redo it, expand it, things like that. But for that ballpark to have 4,500, that's actually a pretty big deal at Oklahoma.
And what a softball draw?
Around the same. Yeah, like softball almost outdraws baseball. It might actually outdraw baseball. Like it's that big of a deal there. So, they'll up the ante a little bit crowd-wise this weekend, but I would also imagine a lot of your North Texas LSU fans, lower Arkansas, LSU, Northern Louisiana. I mean, hell, if
but Kendall,
it's as close to Norman as it is Baton Rouge, if not closer.
I didn't go examine and pull up Oklahoma's schedule. When you start having LSU and teams like that come to town, that can help raise their tickets. I mean,
here's the thing, man.
It's not like having TCU come to town.
Yeah, or Kansas State or West Virginia. And again, I'm not saying those teams stink, but like LSU rolls into town, everybody's like, ooh, these guys are in town. Like I typically don't go out to a baseball game, but hell, I know those guys. Let's go.
Yeah, Vols, Georgia. I mean, anybody. Of course, always Texas, A&M. I mean, they can't help but go up with what their season ticket holders going to be getting in their package. And why not? But I was just wondering more about the park. Is it a cracker box? Is it?
It is not a cracker box, but I will say this. Actually, I want to say on Saturday the wind will be blowing in because I think there's a cold front blowing through. But it looks like the wind's going to shift on Sunday. If the wind shifts from the south on Sunday, the ball absolutely flies out of that place.
Expect 2 out of 3 for LSU.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident in 2 out of 3 for LSU. I just think offensively, I think LSU's a lot better offensively, and I don't think the two teams are that far apart from a pitching standpoint. Kate Anderson against Kyson Witherspoon, tune into that one. That's going to be big time.
So that one, we mentioned Georgia and Texas. That Alabama Auburn, you got a couple of biggies there. What's the one that you're most intrigued about?
Yeah, Alabama and Auburn's really interesting, especially Bama going down to Auburn. I think if you look back at the Georgia series last weekend, Auburn got swept, but I didn't think they played bad. I mean, they were in every single one of those games for the most part. So I think that's a big series. Ole Miss and Kentucky has my attention. I thought Kentucky's offense last weekend against A&M was really good. Tyler Bell, kind of like Will Schmidt, first-round pick guy who went to college. He's starting to heat up a little bit. Vanderbilt at Florida. I mean, we talk about, teams that need to get on a run. I mean, that's a must-win weekend for them. And, it's kind of weird that you see A&M and Tennessee and go, that series doesn't really mean much. But those two teams do play this weekend in a repeat of the national championship series last year. And unfortunately for A&M, this is a must-win weekend. And I do not ever want to go to Lindsey Nelson Stadium in a must-win situation. So I think Tennessee rolls in that one.
All right, I'm pulling up D1 Baseball on YouTube. And before we let you get out of here, I really want to hit on some of the shows so these guys know. They need to go to D1 Baseball on YouTube and subscribe to y'all's channel. Your live shows, you've got the D1 Baseball Nerdcast. You've got your Waypoints with Joe Healy all weekend long. I mean, what else you got? Y'all got 6,600 subscribers, man. Y'all should be at 20 minimum right now. So let's.
We need to get Mike Scarborough in charge of getting people to click for us.
Yeah,
for a nominal
y'all
fee.
are kicking out a lot of. I mean, you got D1baseball.com, but I keep telling everybody that YouTube channel is really good stuff. I'll watch a lot of that stuff throughout the weekend.
I really feel like, I don't know if I've even ever promoted it on here, but if you go to our channel during the morning on the weekend, Joe Healy does a really nice job of those weekend waypoints. He just kind of dives into the top performances from the previous day. He kind of, he watches a lot of games, so he just has a lot of really good analysis on all those teams. There's really, I watch a lot of games. Joe watches everything. So
it's a live show and he's taking questions. He's interacting with fans of all the fan
it's really
bases.
good.
So, and he's real laid back. It's, if you're a baseball fan, I think you'll enjoy that one. Coupon code, discount code to subscribe.
Yeah, man, Omaha 30. Continue to get 30% off of any subscription package. So we'll clearly have a lot of LSU coverage. Again, I'm expecting to get over there for the Tennessee series here, and that'll be 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Yep.
So look forward to it.
Come in early, man. I'm serious. We'll go do lunch or do something. But
you got it, man.
All right, Kendall. Have a good weekend, man. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye.